Let's talk about creating your own custom layout sheets next. First of all, we need to start with a blank canvas. So if we go to File, New, and let's choose a new template. Plain paper is fine, and I tend to use A3 landscape. You can choose whatever you like. Let's just make this page a bit bigger. Okay, so there's two ways that I can do this. The first is by far the easiest and quickest, so let's start there. I'm guessing that the majority of you taking this course are coming from an AutoCAD background, as I did when I first started out with SketchUp and Layout. If you are, then you no doubt also have an existing library of CAD blocks saved somewhere that, you know, tried and tested title sheets that you've used for every project. Well, all is not lost. You can quickly import those into Layout and then modify them to suit your requirements. If you're not coming from an AutoCAD background, but maybe you've got a CAD block from another program that you can export as a DWG, then that'll work too. Let me show you how. So the first thing to do is make sure you've got the paper the right size you want it to be. I've already chosen an A3 template, but if you want to change the paper size, again, it's back in here in Document Setup. Under Paper, you can modify those settings accordingly. Okay. Now let's quickly set up some layers for the title block and the extra items I'm going to create. So over here, you'll notice that I've got a layer already set up that says on every page. So that's great. So let's just rename that to title block. And we've also got another layer called default, which we can rename to page notes as before. We want a third layer, so if we click on this plus icon here, we can call that viewports. Okay, that's all very easy. So now let's bring in our CAD block. Simply go to File, Insert, and then navigate to the appropriate folder. Here's the one I want to use, A3 title GA. Select that and then select Open. Okay, so now you'll be presented with this option, whether you want to use paper space or model space, depending on how you've had your CAD set up in the past. For me, all of my CAD blocks are in model space only. So that's all the information that I need to bring in is from model space. Don't have to change anything else. Click OK. So here you can see it comes in. Now it's not quite right, but a lot of the work's already done for us. The first thing I want you to notice is that you've got this little number up here in the corner. Now this indicates the scale of this object that we've brought in, this group. And you'll see it's not quite 1:1. So the first thing we need to do is just to right click, go to scale, full size. Okay, now we know we've got our A3 sheet to scale. Okay, the next thing we need to make sure is that object snap is turned on. So if you right click on a blank piece of page, you'll see you've got object snap. Now I've got it ticked. If yours isn't, make sure it is. Okay, what that means now is that I can, once I hover over this, I get the move icon. I can drag this into position and I should be able to just snap it into the corners of the sheet like that. Okay, now it's not quite right, so I'll just use the arrow keys just to nudge it in place. Okay, so I'm happy with that. Now you'll also notice that this text is all kind of the wrong size, so I need to be able to edit that text. Now, if you're on a Mac, then you'll need to go to Window, Show Fonts. Okay, and I can get this font dialog up. If you're on a PC, it will appear over here in your tray, but it will be the same process. You simply go to Window and then make sure that the text tools are selected. Okay, so this comes in as a group, as you'll see. The first thing we notice is that it's blue, which means it's not on our shared layer. And our layers dialog over here tells us that it's in the viewports layer, because that's the layer that we had selected. So let's right click on this group and go move to layer title block. And now you'll see it turns red. We know it's on our title block layer, which means it's shared on every page. Okay, let's go in and edit the text to get it to the right size. So if we double click on the group to open it, okay, first of all, I want to select this text block and this text block together, and I want that to be Arial, regular, and for me, I want this to be size 6, and then click off. Now, each of these are tags for labels on the drawing, so I want to select each of these. I'm selecting multiple by holding down shift, which is pretty standard. Project stage, date, scale, drawn, checked, and drawing title, whoops, don't want that line. And I want those to be Arial, regular, size 5. Okay, you can completely modify this however you want. I'm just kind of working through an example for you. Okay, so now I've got places to put my information. I've got my kind of disclaimer and everything else. The next thing I need is my logo. Okay, so if I again go to File, let's just close the fonts down for a second. File, Insert, navigate to where my logo is kept. We'll use this one, logo generic. Again, you use your own logo. Now, it's brought it in outside of this group. You'll see that it's not part of the group. It's on the same layer, but it's not part of the group. The first thing to do is just to position it where I want it, and then scale it. Again, holding down shift to ensure that it scales proportionally, as you would in any other program, and then using the arrow keys just to kind of position it where you want it. I'm happy with that. Let's just nudge it down a touch. Now I want this to be within the group of the title block. So all I need to do is select it and then go to Command or Control X to cut it, open the group, and then Command V to paste it in the group. So now if I exit out the group, the whole thing in one block. Great. Okay, so now we're starting to look like a title block. The next thing I need to do is to add in some placeholder text for each of these items. So I simply open up the block again, by double clicking, and then I'll use my text tool up here, and I'll just draw a box for that text, and I will type in some placeholder text. So I'll just say client name. Okay, now using my fonts, I want to make sure that that is the same font. So I want Arial and I want size 7. Just select it, Arial, size 7. Let's go for size 8. Okay, that looks pretty good. Also, I think I want to nudge it over just so that it lines up. Okay, so there we go. So there's one of our placeholder text. Now it's simply a case of copying each of these by selecting it, holding down Option or Control if you're on a PC to make a copy, and filling in each of these spaces. This is the stage where we might want to add some of our auto text. If we go to File, Document Setup, Auto Text, you'll see the default auto text tags. Now there's things in here we don't need, like address, company, and I tend to just delete these using the minus symbol just to keep things neat. I don't typically use the current date, and I don't typically use date created or date published or file name. Okay, so now it's nice and clean. I've got page name, page number, date modified, and author. And once you select these auto text tags, you can give them some data in here. So author, let's just give it my initials, etc. You can choose the date format. I like to have the day followed by the month, followed by the year. Okay, so hopefully you can see how you can add all these things for yourself. Now, I also want to add some of my own auto text tags. So if I go to plus and choose custom text, add, I'm going to have one for project type. Okay, and I will give that just some placeholder text. So let's call this project type and location. Okay, I'm going to add another one, another custom text, which is project number, and we'll just give that 1, 2, 3, 4. So you get the idea. I want to create auto text tags for each of these elements, or as many of them as I can. Go ahead and fill that out yourself. I'll do the same. Join me back here in a moment and we'll go on to the next steps. Okay, so now I've created all of my custom auto text tags. The way to use them is simply if I select this title block that I've created and double click, you'll see that the text is highlighted. Text, insert auto text, and now you'll see I've got the option to add project type. So if I select that, it fills it in for me, and now I've got project type and location. Alternatively, you could just type the data tag, but I find it easier to do it that way. Okay, so again, I'll let you go ahead and fill each of those in yourself, and then we'll talk about the next steps in a moment. Okay, so now I have copied and added auto text to each of those fields. Obviously, it's still quite generic, but that's fine because we're going to save it as a template anyway. Also, you'll notice that there's this line here. If we want to change the stroke or anything of that, we can go over here to shape style. Now let's change that to say a dark gray. Let's make it quite thick, and let's give it a dashed line effect. Okay, just to illustrate you how that might look. So there we have it. The last thing to do is to save this as a template. So if we just go to File, Save as Template, and then you'll get this option. I tend to change just to save it to the default folder. That way, whenever you open the layout, the next time you'll be able to choose from that template. Okay. In the next lesson, I'm going to show you how to build a sheet from scratch without a CAD block.